She stepped out cautiously, scanning the grounds. Then, flashing blue and red lights pierced the darkness. Police cars. 3 of them. They were parked near the front gate, officers spreading across the property. One neighbor, she realized, must have seen the man break in and called the police. Lila felt her knees weaken with relief. 2 officers were wrestling with the man, Aisha's father, dragging him toward a police vehicle. He kicked, shouted, cursed, his rage spilling into the night. "She's my daughter," he roared. "You can't keep me from her. Let go of me. Let go." One officer held firm. "Sir, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, child endangerment, and assault. Calm down." The man snarled, lunging, but the officers shoved him into the back of the car and slammed the door. For the first time tonight, Lila breathed without fear squeezing her chest. "Aisha," she whispered. "It's safe. Come out." A moment later, the shed door opened. Aisha stepped out cautiously, her eyes widening as she saw the flashing police lights. Her father, trapped behind the glass of the car, still shouting. Aisha froze, panic crawling up her throat. Lila placed an arm around her. "You're safe now," she whispered gently. A police officer approached them, softening his voice. "Is this the girl? Is she hurt?" Aisha shook her head quickly, hiding behind Lila. "She's scared," Lila said, her voice firm. "She needs care, protection, not fear." The officer nodded. "We'll make sure she gets it." Aisha turned to Lila, tears rolling down her cheeks once more, but this time, they weren't from terror. "They never believed me before," she whispered. "No one ever listened." Lila knelt down, cupping her face gently. "I listened. And I won't stop. You're not alone anymore." For the first time in years, Aisha let herself cry in someone's arms, not out of fear, but relief. The storm had passed. The night was finally still. And though the dawn had not yet broken, Aisha felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. For several long minutes, the only sound inside the shed was the storm raging outside and Aisha's trembling breaths against Lila's shoulder. The air was damp, cold, and heavy with fear. Lila didn't dare move, didn't dare speak. Her ears strained for any sign of returning footsteps, the crunch of boots on wet grass, the rattle of the shed door handle, the angry growl of a man who would not be denied. But slowly, painfully, the night began to shift. The thunder softened. The rain calmed to a steady patter. The wind eased into a low whisper. Aisha lifted her head at last, her cheeks streaked with tears. "Is he really gone?" she whispered, her voice brittle. Lila didn't answer right away. She rose slowly from behind the crates and moved toward the shed door. Her heart hammered as she pressed her ear against the wood, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No voice. No flashlight beam slicing through the window. "I think." Lila swallowed, trying to steady her voice. "I think he left. Or at least walked away for now." Aisha let out a shaky breath, but her fear didn't fade. She hugged her arms tightly across her chest, rocking gently. "He never gives up," she murmured. "He'll look everywhere. He'll wait. He'll come back." Lila placed a gentle hand on the girl's back. "Not this time," she said firmly. "Not while I'm here." Aisha's eyes brimmed again. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." "Because no child deserves to run in fear like this," Lila answered. "If I don't protect you, who will?" For the first time, a flicker of something like hope crossed Aisha's face. Lila straightened. "Stay inside. I'll check." "No," Aisha grabbed her hand, panic rising again. "Don't leave me. He could be out there." "I'll be right outside the door, I promise," Lila said, squeezing her hand. "If I don't check, we'll be trapped here. Let me make sure it's safe." Aisha hesitated, then nodded, trusting her. With a slow breath, Lila cracked open the shed door. The air outside smelled of rain and mud. The garden glistened with water. Dark clouds drifted overhead, but the storm's fury had lessened, leaving an eerie calm behind. The mud sucked at their shoes as they pushed forward, rain hitting them like icy stones. The wind shrieked as if trying to warn them, but they pressed on. Behind them, footsteps thundered across the lawn. Heavy. Fast. Angry. Lila risked a glance over her shoulder. The man was closing in, his eyes blazing with fury, his silhouette massive against the lightning-lit sky. The storm only made him look more terrifying, as though the darkness itself fed him. "Hurry," Lila shouted, pulling Aisha with renewed force. Aisha's legs were shaking violently. She was half running, half stumbling, her breath coming in choked gasps. I can't. "Yes, you can," Lila snapped, her voice fierce. "Almost there, just a little more." They reached the shed door. Lila fumbled with the key, her hand soaked and slippery. The key slipped from her fingers once, twice, clattering against the handle. Her pulse skyrocketed. Behind them, the man shouted again, "Closer now. You can't hide her. She's mine." Lila finally got the key into the lock. It turned. Click. She shoved Aisha inside first, then slipped in behind her and pulled the door shut, sealing them in darkness. They crouched behind a stack of dusty crates, the air thick with the smell of old tools and motor oil. Aisha buried her face against Lila's shoulder, shaking. Outside, the man's footsteps slowed. He was near. Very near. Lila held her breath, every muscle in her body tense. She could hear him breathing just outside the shed, a slow, heavy, hateful breath. Then the beam of his flashlight swept across the small window. Aisha stiffened. The light paused. Then moved on. He muttered something under his breath, something chilling and furious, before stepping away. Minutes ticked by like hours. The storm continued to rage, but his footsteps eventually grew fainter, then disappeared. Aisha lifted her head, voice barely a whisper. "Is he gone?" Lila exhaled shakily, not taking her eyes off the window. "For now," she murmured. "But this isn't over." Not yet. The storm swallowed them instantly. Rain hammered down in thick sheets, turning the garden into a maze of blurred shadows and slick mud. Lila held Aisha's hand as tight as she could, pulling her into the darkness behind the mansion. The wind whipped their clothes and soaked their hair, but neither of them slowed. The fear behind them was stronger than any storm. "Keep your head down," Lila shouted over the thunder. Aisha nodded weakly, barely able to keep her footing as they ran across the yard. Every few steps, she slipped, and Lila caught her, forcing her forward. The garden lights flickered in the wind, casting broken flashes of illumination that made everything feel unreal, like a nightmare refusing to end. Behind them, the kitchen door slammed open with a violent crash. Lila didn't have to turn around to know who it was. "Aisha!" the man roared, his voice booming across the lawn. "Come back here!" Aisha's breath hitched with sobs as she stumbled behind Lila. "He's close, he's so close." "Don't look back," Lila ordered, voice shaking. "Just run, child." The estate was enormous, but the open garden felt exposed. There was nowhere to hide here. Lila's gaze darted around desperately, searching for somewhere safe, somewhere he wouldn't think to check. Then she spotted it. At the far edge of the property, Half hidden by tall hedges and an old oak tree, stood the maintenance shed. A small building everyone ignored. Gardeners used it only in the summer, and no one ever went there at night. Lila had a spare key on her. That shed could save them. She pointed through the rain. Aisha. There, the shed. We're going there. Aisha followed her gaze, squinting through the storm. But he'll see us. He won't, Lila insisted. Stay close. Don't fall. Crack. Aisha shrieked. Lila didn't dare look back. Faster, she urged, pulling the girl forward with every ounce of strength she had. They burst into the mansion's main corridor, a long hallway lined with elegant portraits and antique lamps. But tonight, none of it looked beautiful. Everything looked dark, eerie, and stretched by the dim emergency lights that glowed faintly along the floor. Where are we going? Aisha panted, her small hand tightening around Lila's. Somewhere he can't find you, Lila said. We just have to keep moving. A distant crash signaled that the man had entered the servant quarters. Now he was inside the same building they were in, and getting closer. His footsteps thundered down the hallway behind them. Aisha. His voice boomed, raw and ferocious. You belong to me. Aisha stumbled but Lila caught her. Don't stop, Lila urged. They darted toward the kitchen, the only exit Lila knew she could unlock quickly. They skidded across the cold tiles just as the man's silhouette appeared at the far end of the hall. He saw them. And he ran. Lila's heart dropped. He was fast, faster than she expected. His heavy boots slammed against the marble as he charged, his breath ragged, his rage monstrous. Lila shoved open the back door, the wind slamming against it as if resisting her. She pushed harder, dragging Aisha through the doorway. The storm hit them instantly, cold rain soaking their clothes and blurring their vision. Behind them, the man roared, "Stop!" But Lila wasn't stopping. Not tonight. Not for him. She pulled Aisha into the storm, the night swallowing them whole as they ran for their lives. The door shook under the force of the man's fists, each pound echoing through the tiny servant quarters like a hammer striking metal. Lila felt the vibrations crawl up her spine. Aisha clung to her arm, trembling so violently that Lila feared she might collapse. The storm outside made everything worse, thunder cracking, wind screaming, the rain hitting the windows like stones. But even all that noise couldn't drown out the rage in the man's voice. "Aisha," he roared, his words slicing through the storm. "You think you can hide from me? Open this door." Aisha covered her ears, whimpering. Lila stepped in front of her instinctively, though the door felt like the only thing standing between them and the man outside. She peeked through the narrow curtain again, her breath catching in her throat. The man wasn't just angry, he radiated fury. His chest heaved with every breath. The flashlight in his hand shook with wrath more than the wind. His clothes were soaked, plastered to his broad frame, but he didn't look cold. He looked dangerous, determined, relentless. And he was getting more violent by the second. He slammed his shoulder against the door. Aisha screamed. The wooden frame rattled, the hinges whining under the pressure. Lila's mind raced. She had no phone. The mansion was massive, but empty tonight. The family was traveling. No guards. No staff. No one who could intervene. It was just her and the girl against this enraged man. And she knew, one more hit, and the door would break. "Aisha," she whispered urgently, kneeling beside the terrified girl. "We have to go. Now." "Where?" Aisha cried, shaking her head. "He'll catch me. He always catches me." "Not if we move fast," Lila said, forcing calm into her voice. "You trust me?" It took a moment, but Aisha finally nodded. Another deafening slam hit the door, louder than the last. The wood cracked near the lock. Splinters fell to the floor. They didn't have a second more to waste. Lila grabbed Aisha's hand and pulled her toward the hallway that led to the main mansion. As they fled, the lights flickered again, throwing shadows across the walls like twisted silhouettes trying to grab them. The old floorboards creaked beneath their rushing footsteps. Behind them, the door's frame groaned, then split. She shivered violently. Lila hurried to wrap the blanket tighter around her. "Child. You did the right thing coming here," Lila murmured. "You're safe with me." But Aisha shook her head. "No one is safe when he's angry. I've seen what he becomes." Before Lila could ask what that meant, a heavy thud sounded from outside, not on the door this time, but somewhere close to the window. Lila felt her blood turn cold. Aisha clapped a hand over her mouth to stop a scream. "He's here," she whispered again. "I know it." Lila forced herself to take a silent breath and peered through the window's side curtain. Her eyes widened. A tall, broad-shouldered figure stood just beyond the edge of the porch light. Rain hit his back like needles, but he didn't flinch. He was motionless, except for the slow sweep of a flashlight across the lawn. The beam moved like a hunting animal sniffing for prey. Lila could feel the anger radiating off him from across the yard. He shouted something, but the wind swallowed half the words. "Aisha." Thunder rolled. "You think you can run from me?" Aisha whimpered and pressed herself further into the chair. Lila's heart pounded. She wasn't a guard, or a police officer, or anyone important. She was just a maid with a small room and a larger heart. But something deep inside her rose up, a fierce instinct she didn't even know she had. "No," Lila whispered to herself. "He won't touch this child again." The man's flashlight beam hit the door. Another thud. Then another. Each one harder than the last. Aisha clutched Lila's arm. "Please don't let him take me back. He'll. "I won't," Lila said firmly, even though fear trembled under her words. Outside, the man's voice thundered. "Open this door." Lila locked her jaw. She had no idea how she would protect the girl. Only one thing was clear. The danger had arrived. And it would not leave peacefully. Aisha's trembling grew harder with every second that passed. Lila placed a steadying hand on the girl's shoulder, though her own heart was thudding in her ribcage like a frantic drum. The storm outside was raging, the wind howling as if warning them of something dark closing in. Still, nothing was louder than the terror in Aisha's breaths, sharp, uneven, gasping. "Slow down, child," Lila whispered, crouching to meet her eye level. "Tell me what's happening. Tell me the truth." Aisha's eyes darted around the small room, as if she expected shadows to reach out and drag her away. Only after a long moment did she finally whisper. "It's my father." Lila waited, allowing the girl to speak at her own pace. "He's not normal," Aisha said, voice cracking. "He gets angry over the smallest things. And when he gets angry—" She stopped, swallowing hard, as though the memories were choking her. "He hurts people. He hurt my mother. He hurt me." Lila's chest tightened. She had heard stories of cruel parents before, but the look in Aisha's eyes, the hollow dread, was something much darker. "I tried to stay quiet. Tried to obey every rule," Aisha continued. "But he never got better. Every year, it got worse. And when my mother finally escaped, he didn't punish her. He punished me instead." Aisha wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I thought he would kill me. One day." Lila inhaled deeply. She wanted to reach forward, hug her, protect her, But Aisha wasn't done. "Tonight," he snapped again, the girl said. "He broke the door. He said I didn't deserve to live free. That I belonged to him." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "So I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just followed the road. I climbed over walls, hid behind cars, crawled through mud, anything to get away." A girl, no older than 15, stood there drenched from head to toe. Water streamed down her face, mixing with tears. Her clothes were torn and muddy, clinging to her small frame like a second skin. Her legs shook so violently she looked like she might collapse. "My God," Lila whispered. "Child, come inside. Quickly." The girl stumbled over the threshold, gasping for breath. Lila shut the door behind her and locked it without thinking. The girl collapsed onto the wooden floor, hugging herself. "What happened? Who's coming?" Lila asked, kneeling next to her. The girl's eyes darted toward the window, terrified, searching the darkness outside as though expecting a monster to appear. "I ran," she whispered. "I ran so far. But he always finds me." "Who?" Lila repeated softly. The girl swallowed hard. "My father." Lila felt the blood drain from her face. She didn't know this child, had never seen her on the estate, but the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. It wasn't the fear of a strict parent. It was something deeper, darker. The lights flickered overhead. The storm growled outside. Lila helped the girl to a chair and wrapped her in a blanket. "What's your name?" she asked. The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Aisha." Lila nodded gently. "Aisha, you're safe now. No one's going to hurt you here." But before Lila could say another word, a sharp thud sounded outside. Aisha's entire body jolted. "He's here," she whispered, voice breaking. "He found me." And for the first time that night, fear wrapped itself around Lila's spine. The night had settled over the mansion like a heavy blanket, thick with the kind of silence that almost felt alive. Lila, the maid, worked quietly in the small servant quarters tucked behind the main estate. She moved from basket to basket, folding laundry with practiced speed. She had done this job for years, long nights, early mornings, endless chores, but tonight felt different. The storm outside had turned unusually violent. Wind rushed against the windows. Tree branches scraped the side of the building like fingernails. The sky cracked open with rolling thunder that made the walls tremble. Even still, Lila continued working, humming a soft tune her grandmother used to sing. It kept her calm on nights like this. Just as she folded the last shirt, the calm shattered. Bang! A single frantic knock hit the door so hard she jumped. The laundry slipped from her hands. Her heart hammered in her chest. For a moment, she wondered if it was the wind, but no. It came again. Bang! 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 Not a normal knock. This one trembled with fear, urgency, and desperation. "Who's there?" Lila called cautiously, her voice shaking. She wasn't expecting anyone. The mansion family was away on a business trip. No other staff were on duty tonight. She was completely alone. Another knock, this time softer, weaker, like someone's strength was fading. And then a voice. A voice so fragile it made her stomach twist. "Ma'am. Please. Help me. He's coming." Lila froze. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. The voice was young, too young. A girl. A teenager, maybe? What was a child doing here in the middle of a storm? "Please." The voice sobbed. "He's close. He found me again. Don't let him take me." Something in those words pierced straight through Lila's chest. Slowly, she opened the door.